Let me tell you how bad it was in this last session. This last session, the governor and very radical Democrat control in the House, very radical Democrat control in the Senate, came in to put a budget together. They ended up increasing the spending almost 10%, while across the country, on average, every other state, on average, cut their budget 2.5%. They recognized across the country what we know in our families, that when things get tough, you've got to be firm. You've got to have discipline. You've got to pull back. They raised the spending level almost 10% on top of a 17% increase in the previous budget. When on average, the states that cut their budget 2.5% this time had cut their budgets 2.2% in the previous budgets. And they sit up there in Concord telling us that they're good managers, that they're responsible. They are on a charm offensive now. You'll see the Speaker of the House, Speaker Norelli. You'll see the Senate President Larson. You'll see the Governor, Governor Lynch, going around telling us how they made the hard decisions. They made no hard decisions. The reason they increased the budget 17% to begin with was to buy constituencies for the 2008 election. And you know what they did right after the election? They came back and said, okay, now we're going to be good managers. Now we're going to try and cut the budget. And he has this executive order that cut $5 million or $9 million out of a $1 trillion+ budget. Chump change in terms of real numbers. And then they go and increase this budget 10%. No discipline at all. How do they deal with the 10% increase? One-time revenue. The biggest sin in the world, if you're putting public budgets together, is to count on one-time revenues. You only use them once, and then they're gone, and you leave that hole for the next budget. So right off the bat, the next budget doesn't have the one-time money you've already used. What'd they do? First of all, smoke and mirrors. They pretended they weren't increasing spending. So they took some of the things that are traditionally listed as expenditures and they put them and bonded them. That's like paying your mortgage with a credit card. It's not the thing to do. Second thing they do is they juggled the books on the Liquor Commission. They hid $42 million someplace so that it wasn't counted as spending. And then they shortchanged the cities and towns over $100 million. And then the one that I really find unbelievable is they went and tried to steal $110 million from the doctors and healthcare service organizations in the state. Just to explain that, way back in the late 70s, early 80s, the state set up what they call a joint underwriters administration, in which the doctors would pay premiums, just like insurance premiums, for malpractice protection. In those days, it was hard to get malpractice insurance. It's still a little difficult. And over the years, those premiums built up a reserve of $150 or $160 million. And the law says if the reserves get more than they need to have to run this insurance operation soundly, it belongs to those who paid the premiums and should be returned to them. It's their money. But the governor and the legislature decided they needed revenue. And they said, well, why don't we just change the law and make it state money, and we can have it as revenue this time. Double sin. One, it's one-time revenue, and two, it's stealing. The Superior Court, finally the doctors and the hospitals went to court. The Superior Court told the governor and the legislature that they were stealing it and it was not allowed. Now they're going to the state Supreme Court, and basically what they're saying in the news articles you read is that don't worry about the $110 million. It'll come back as revenue because these appointees that the governors have made over the last decade by Democratic governors know the story and they'll take care of the state of New Hampshire. I hope that's not true. I hope that they're not going to count on this court being political instead of doing things the way the Constitution of the state of New Hampshire says it ought to be done. So how big is this one-time funding hole? It's between $500 and $600 million. Which means even if we manage to get through this budget without a deficit, the next budget starts automatically $500 or $600 million short. Unbelievable. And they're trying to tell us they did the tough things.